joining us right now out in New Hampshire is Marilinda Garcia. She is a political analyst for the Granite State. Also, the Republican National Committee called her a rising star in New Hampshire politics back in 2013. Still a rising star. Marilinda Garcia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
You are one of those people who Rand Paul is going to want to court because your voice, you're a very prominent person in New Hampshire right now, and let's face it, you're bringing a youth vote, a woman's vote. I mean, you got it all. So, what do you like about Rand Paul, if anything, and how are things looking in New Hampshire?
Well, things in New Hampshire are still a little cold out here, and snow hasn't melted away yet. But otherwise, things are certainly heating up on the political front. Yeah, it's good to hear Senator Paul's speech, and I think, frankly, he is going to be up here taking, of course, advantage of the publicity that people, all candidates get, which is a great thing, throughout the year as the primary approaches, but also seeking to define his niche. And what's interesting, I think, about Senator Paul is you can even hear it in, that part of his speech right there. He immediately defines himself as liberty-loving, and I think everybody assumes that he might even be, a shoo-in for the libertarians, but actually there's a tension about that as well from, the group that has been loyal to persons such as his dad, for example, and then the way he's been positioning himself. So I think most of the candidates are in a situation where strategically they're looking at the different demographics, voting blocks, interest groups, whatever you want to call them, and are looking to see where they can solidify a base to come out on top.
Marilinda, it's John Bolton. How are you? Thanks for joining us. I think most of the candidates on the Republican side are going to be pretty libertarian in their domestic economic and fiscal policy, smaller government, lower taxes, less regulation. And the issue that Rand Paul seems to be struggling with the most is where he is on foreign policy, whether he's an apple that didn't fall far from his father's tree or whether he's moved away from that position. How do you see that issue playing out in the debates, and will the other Republicans be able to use Senator Paul's foreign policy views to his disadvantage?
Sure. It remains to be seen how he will precisely define himself, and of course this is an issue particularly as it relates to, of course, Iran and frankly, the ever-evolving situation in that region. So, the debate, I'm sure, will shift with time, but I do think that right now it's more of an issue of kind of getting that first group of support that can kind of build momentum as you move along. I don't know if right now the voters have really gone beyond kind of a spectator, or exploratory type of state of mind. I think, most people want to kind of shop around for candidate, see how things develop. They'll be paying much more close attention, I think, to a more defined, specific policy views and opinions and ideas when the debates roll around. But as of now, I think it's more of an issue of, gut reaction. If someone really blows them away, they might, be inclined to join the team. Otherwise, I think they just want to see how people, how the candidates kind of stake out their land.
but to Ambassador Bolton's point, I mean, when I think back of some of the really memorable New Hampshire primaries on both sides of the aisle, Democrat or Republican, you either think of Paul Tsongas in '92, you think of Pat Buchanan in '92 actually, and Bob Dole and George Bush the first back in '88, and in recent years as well. The turning point always seems to be about taxes and the role of government in our lives, the deficit. Foreign policy, national security doesn't seem, in my memory, and maybe I'm wrong, to be as prominent an issue with the voters of New Hampshire in years past. Am I right in saying that? And do you think, based on the last several years of Barack Obama's national security, that could change, if I am right?
Well, based on my experience from campaigning over a large swath of the state last year and, talking with everybody, I would say in polls, for example, jobs in the economy always kind of rises to the top in terms of, the most important issue or what people are most concerned about. But I think people's everyday, aside from their experience, if they have a job and things are going okay for them, then they're concerned about the economic well-being of the nation. But I think the barrage of media and, frankly, scary stuff about instability in the world, what's going on with ISIS continually, and the threat of a nuclear Iran, all of this, I do think foreign policy does pop up out there, especially in questions, certainly in the town hall format and everything else. I think you're much more likely to get a foreign policy question and a question about, what people want to know, what each candidate's feeling is on what America's role in the world is right now and going forward, as opposed to some sort of very, esoteric tax policy question. So I think the ambassador has a very good point.
Marilinda, on the Democratic side, do you detect any nervousness about Hillary Clinton? She's been coming down in the national polls against some of the well-known Republican candidates. Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, well known to the listeners here in the D.C. area, has been poking around in New Hampshire. No sign that Hillary's really being challenged for the Democratic nomination. But do you think they're getting nervous that maybe she may be inevitable to get the nomination but not win in November?
I don't know if they're feeling nervous, but I certainly haven't noted any, groundswell of, massive enthusiasm that, this is it, she's our girl, this is what we want. So I'm actually just generally incredulous that the Democrats, for all of their talk of, being the party, that's with the times and, of the people and all of the, negative things they say about Republicans in terms of our image and whatnot, that they can never seem, or at least this time around certainly, never seem to have all these candidates, that are younger and, and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, if you will, and, talking about new things and, looking forward-thinking in many respects. Instead, all they can trot out again, I guess, is Clinton and Hillary at that. So I don't know. I do think an interesting point amongst the Republican candidates will be, in fact, how they are effective in taking on Hillary Clinton if, she's presumably the nominee or anyone else. And so that's where I think there'll be some interesting stuff to watch.
Marilinda Garcia, New Hampshire political analyst, thanks so much for joining us today. You're going to be busy. Lots more candidates announcing, so we'll be looking to see what your take is in the future.
See you up there next week.
Okay, thanks. See you there.